Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
We're picking up where we left off, exploring the world of hexagrams.
Specifically.
Specifically hexagram 2,
Yeah.
which we've mentioned before, but today
Oh, going deep.
we're really going deep today, yeah.
Yes, and our source material today is a book by Jordan,
Yes.
which dives into some really profound concepts around receptivity and spirituality. It's a fascinating one.
Okay, so receptivity, spirituality, hexagram 2.
Okay.
Unpack that a bit for me.
All right.
What's the connection?
Well, you know how last time we talked about hexagram 1 being all about force,
Right.
that dynamic energy of creation?
Mm-hmm.
Think of hexagram 2 as the opposite side of that same coin.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Go on.
Hexagram 2 embodies receptivity. It's the field upon which that force acts,
Okay.
the fertile ground where things can take root and grow. And Jordan connects this idea to the concept of beauty.
Truth and beauty.
Yes,
Two sides of the same coin. I like it.
exactly.
But what does it actually mean to be receptive?
Especially in the context of, spirituality.
Imagine for a moment a still pond.
Okay.
On the surface, there might be ripples and waves, but deep down, there's this stillness, this quiet receptivity. That's what Hexagram 2 invites us to cultivate within ourselves, that inner stillness that allows us to simply be present with whatever arises without judgment or the need to control.
It's like creating a space for things to just be rather than always trying to force them into a certain shape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the spiritual dimension comes in.
Okay.
Think of it like this: progressive paths often focus on what you might call cleaning up karma, working through past conditioning, accumulating good deeds, that sort of thing. It's like building a spiritual resume.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's about earning your enlightenment, so to speak.
In a way, yes. But Jordan's point is that this pursuit of karmic purity, while potentially beneficial, isn't actually necessary for awakening.
Okay.
The direct path, on the other hand, is available to everyone right here, right now.
Whoa, that's a bold statement.
It is.
If it's available to all of us right now, what's stopping us from experiencing it?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question.
All right, you've successfully piqued my curiosity.
And it gets to the heart of what makes Hexagram 2 so powerful.
What is stopping us?
According to Jordan, it's our own minds.
Okay.
They call it PPH, prioritizing personal happiness, and gag, grip, and grasp.
Okay.
We're constantly chasing after pleasure, avoiding pain, grasping for things that we think will make us happy.
Oof, that hits close to home.
Right.
I think we've all been guilty of that at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's in that chasing, that constant striving, that we miss the present moment.
So we're so busy trying to change our external circumstances that we neglect the inner work, the inner stillness, that receptivity that allows us to simply be present with what is.
Precisely. And this is where that idea of unraveling the self comes in.
Which you mentioned earlier, but now you've really got my attention.
Okay.
What does it mean to unravel the self?
It's about letting go of all the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, the labels, the identities, the attachments that keep us feeling separate and incomplete. As Jordan puts it, you are not the seeker, but rather the awareness that sees seeking happening.
Whoa. Okay, I need a minute to unpack that one.
Yeah.
It's like we're so used to identifying with the part of ourselves that's always searching, always striving. But what if there's a deeper dimension to who we are? an awareness that's beyond all of that.
Exactly. And that awareness, that pure presence is always available to us. It's just a matter of shifting our focus, of cultivating that inner stillness and receptivity that allows us to tap into it.
This is blowing my mind in the best way possible.
Good.
So we've got this direct path to spiritual awakening, rooted in receptivity and this idea of unraveling the self.
Yes.
But I'm still stuck on this idea that it's available to us right now.
Okay.
How do we access it? What's the first step?
Well, I think a good place to start is by understanding how this concept of receptivity actually plays out in our daily lives.
You mean, how do we take this lofty concept of Hexagram 2 and actually apply it to our messy, real-world experiences?
Exactly.
Because that's what I'm really curious about.
Let's ground this in some real-world examples, shall we?
All right, so how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah.
How do we take this profound concept of receptivity and actually integrate it into our everyday lives? Because let's be real, life can get pretty messy, and sometimes the last thing on my mind is cultivating inner stillness, you know?
I hear you. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle, but that's precisely why Jordan uses such a striking analogy in the book. They compare force and receptivity to a key and a lock.
A key and a lock. Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but I'm intrigued.
Think about it. You can have the most elaborate, well-crafted key in the world, but without the corresponding lock, it's essentially useless. The lock represents that receptive space, the opening that allows the key, the force, to do its work.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So it's not about one being better than the other, force versus receptivity, but rather about recognizing that both are essential for things to actually happen, for change to occur.
Exactly. And this applies to so many areas of life. Take learning a new skill, for instance. You might have all the drive and ambition in the world, the force, but without an attitude of openness and receptivity towards new information and techniques, you're likely to hit a wall.
It's like you can force yourself to practice, but if your mind isn't receptive to learning to integrate those new skills, you're not really going to make much progress.
This ties back beautifully to the concept of levels of being that Jordan outlines in the book. At level 1, our focus is primarily on fulfilling our own needs and desires. We're operating from that forceful doing energy.
Always striving, always trying to make things happen a certain way. I know that mode all too well.
Yes, and it has its place, of course. But as we transition to levels 2 and 3, the focus shifts from doing to being. We become more present, more attuned to the interconnectedness of all things, and we start to see beyond our own limited perspective.
So at levels 2 and 3, are we essentially embodying that receptive energy of Hexagram 2, becoming that lock that allows for greater possibilities to emerge?
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not that the force of Hexagram 1 disappears entirely, but it becomes balanced by a deeper understanding of receptivity. We learn to work with the natural flow of life rather than constantly swimming upstream against it. By cultivating receptivity, we create the space for transformation and growth to occur organically. We become that fertile ground where new seeds of understanding and awareness can take root.
That's such a powerful image. Okay, so we've talked about how receptivity shows up in learning and personal growth, but what about something like relationships? Can this concept be applied there as well?
Absolutely. In fact, I'd argue that receptivity is essential for healthy, fulfilling relationships.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from unraveling the self to keys and locks.
Yeah, we have.
But if there's one thing I'm taking away from this deep dive,
Right.
it's the power of receptivity.
Yes.
This idea that by cultivating a state of openness and presence, we open ourselves up to a whole world of possibilities that we might otherwise miss.
It's a profound shift in perspective, isn't it? To move from a place of constantly striving and forcing to a place of allowing and receiving.
Absolutely. But I have to admit, it's easier said than done, right?
Sure.
I mean, how often do we actually move through the world with that kind of openness and presence?
You're right, it takes practice. Our default mode is often to grasp, to control, to try to bend the world to our will. But the beauty of this concept of receptivity is that it's not about being perfect. It's about cultivating awareness.
So it's more about noticing when we're stuck in those old patterns of forcing and controlling and gently guiding ourselves back to a place of presence.
Exactly. It's about catching ourselves in those moments and saying, okay, what if I just paused here? What if I took a breath and allowed myself to simply be present with what is without judgment? It's in those moments of conscious presence that we create the space for something new to emerge. We
Yeah.
step out of that cycle of force and control and into the receptive field of possibility.
And that's where the magic happens, right?
Right.
That's where we open ourselves up to inspiration, to creative solutions, to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Precisely.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for you, our listeners.
As always.
As always, we want to leave you with something to ponder.
Okay.
If receptivity is the key to unlocking greater possibilities, what might happen if we extended that receptivity to the unknown,
Ooh, I like where you're going with this.
to the mysteries that lie beyond our current understanding? What if, by embracing the unknown with curiosity and a willingness to let go of our need for certainty, we opened ourselves up to even greater levels of growth, transformation, and joy?
Now, that's a question we're sitting with.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, stay curious.